for, well, could be playoff position. That one's also going to be on NBA League Pass. Like I said, we're going to be here with you guys for the next hour or so until tip-off between Houston and Utah. I'm Kristen Ledlow. He's Brian Shaw. He's Stan Van Gundy. Guys, let's talk a little bit about the end of that Celtics Thunder game, because a game that seemed to have a much larger deficit at halftime certainly turned the tide in that third quarter. But as we take a look at just those final possessions, Coach, it was a defensive stop by Marcus Smart that helped to solidify this win for the Celtics.
Yeah, first it was a great block by Schroeder to give him a chance here, to tie, and then Smart comes up with a great steal, and Kemba wraps it up at the line. But look at this block right here.
Ooh,
Schroeder, not known for his defense. Marcus Smart is known for his defense, and a great strip right there.
And plays so hard, always, but especially down the stretch.
Yeah, I thought that they were affected a little bit by his absence in the first half. He got three fouls in the first half. He was limited to under 9 minutes in that first half. He was able to play a little bit more in the second half, when the Celtics really strapped up and tightened up their defense. And I thought a big part of that was him and the physicality that he brought on that end of the floor.
On the offensive end, though, the Celtics known for at least hitting 12 three-pointers per game. They hit 16 in this one. And, Coach, that was certainly what kept them in the game.
Oh, it sure did, especially in the first half. It kept them within shouting distance. They actually shot it better in the second half from three, but didn't get as many attempts. I think Oklahoma City did a good job getting out and taking away those attempts, but they go 7 for 13, and that's enough to get it. Smart hit a big one too there. So,
right.
This is a guy that they talk about all the time, and Brad Stevens has said he doesn't worry about his numbers, what his percentages look like. He's just concerned about what he brings to their team in terms of his intensity and everything else, and he's a winning player, and he certainly was tonight.
Well, because a lot of the criticism surrounding his game was his percentage from the floor, especially behind that three-point line, but he continued to work on that aspect of his game.
He has, and he's gotten better, and he's become more efficient, and his decision-making has been better, and he's done all of that without losing that tremendous intensity and toughness that he has. He's become a much better player, and certainly part of the fabric of that Celtics team.
When you're looking to improve upon a win streak, when you're a team that already had won 9 of their last 10 going into this matchup, how important are wins like these as you look at, let's see, just a couple months out of the playoff race, and you're a team with championship aspirations, with championship expectations. How big are these kind of wins?
Well, it's huge, and a big part of it is, what you want as a coach is for your team to consistently be able to bring that kind of effort and intensity on the defensive end in particular, because if you can defend like that night in and night out, you're going to always give yourself a chance to win. These two teams were very evenly matched today. The game, you look at the stats, no one side really, stuck out that they dominated in any particular area. The only question that, and I think you alluded to it earlier about the Celtics, is their depth. They were able to withstand 88 points between the 3 guards that we talked about with OKC and Gallinari in there at the end of the game with that lineup. But they didn't get much scoring contribution off of their bench, and that's why their defense is so key to the success for that team.
I did, though, ask you, Stan, at halftime if you were concerned that Kemba Walker was the only player in double-figure scoring. You said that you weren't, because at any point, any one of those guys could go off for 30, and you were close. 26 points for Jason Tatum, and certainly propelled them in the second half.
Yeah, 19 in the second half he had. He's very good. I don't worry, like Brian just said, I don't worry about their starters and Marcus Smart. Those guys are going to play well. I don't worry about their 2 centers. To me, if you have a question with the Celtics, it's their depth on the perimeter and at the 4 position. All those other 4 spots, to me, it's going to be tough. But Tatum, great offensive game. He's shooting the 3 more and better. This is something that's helped his game, and he can turn the corner and get to the basket some. But if you go under on him and give him this kind of room, look at his drive. We didn't see a lot of that last year. He was shooting a lot of those pull-ups. He's changed his shot distribution. That's been big. And here running on the fast break, again from Marcus Smart after a steal.
The other thing about both of these teams, that they give them a chance night in and night out. We talked about their defense, but they both do a really good job of taking care of the ball, and that allows them to, also to have a chance, make the most out of the possessions that they have in a game, and so they're like we talked about, neither team in their respective conferences are, likely to get past those top teams in their conferences, but they will both be tough outs because they defend so well, because they take care of the ball on the offensive side of things. And when you get to the playoffs, every possession counts, and that's what's important.
Yeah, and I thought this is a great game for both of these teams. These are the kind of games, as you know, Brian, when you're coming down the stretch and getting ready for the playoffs, you need to play this kind of game. I mean, obviously you want to win, but these are the games against other good teams and the games back and forth down the stretch. This is when you learn a lot and help get yourself prepared for playoff basketball.
And what I liked about this game, a lot of times you watch teams play, and you have guys out there on the floor that kind of play cool and they kind of go through the motion, and you wonder about whether or not, this guy's giving everything that he has and leaving it out there on the floor. I thought that the competitive spirit in this game was very high from both sides. I'm not giving an inch, but the other side, I'm going to try to take 2 inches. And so everything that each team got, they made the other team work for it. And so that was nice to see. If you're a fan of watching basketball, to see two teams have that competitive spirit out there on the floor.
I agree. And both these teams have, been low drama, fly under the radar, and they're both just about winning. This is two pure basketball teams. You don't have guys out there looking for numbers and stats. Right. They're both balanced teams. They're both well coached. This was a great basketball game to watch.
Let's talk a little bit about the Thunder then, because you mentioned that come playoff time, every possession is going to matter, every win is going to matter, but certainly in the Western Conference. And this, a team that I would imagine unexpectedly at this point for most fans, perhaps even most analysts, is making their way up those ranks in the playoff race.
No question. And if you look at particularly 4 through 7 in that race, it's pretty stacked up, and that's big. I mean, if you think that the Clippers will get more games with Paul George and Kawhi together and finish second, you certainly want to avoid those LA teams in the first round. So getting 4th is obviously huge, get to a home court, but even you'd rather be 5th or 6th than 7th when you're going to have to play one of those LA teams in the first round. So those teams are going to battle down the stretch here. It's going to be very interesting.
When you look at that, doesn't it just get you excited for what's about to come?
Well, it does. I mean, it's been competitive all season long with a lot of these teams. You have some teams that are kind of out of the playoff race that are creeping up, especially in the Western Conference that were in the playoffs, a year ago trying to get to that 8th spot, or 7th spot. So it makes it exciting. And then these teams right in the middle of that Western Conference race, you go on a 2-game losing streak, and then you can flop and, go from 4th to 6th or 4th to 7th, and so that it does make it exciting.
Well, look what happened. That's what's happened to Dallas. Luka Doncic goes out with an injury. They lose 3 out of the 5 games, and all of a sudden they're down in the 7th spot. We're going to see those teams go back and forth. The one thing I do worry about with Oklahoma City is like we said, they're thin. So is Boston, and so these teams are good, solid basketball teams that should play well in the playoffs, but any kind of injury could very quickly change the calculus for either one of these teams.
Well, within the hour, we're going to have more on that.